welcome to snowy Buffalo International Airport here on a cold Monday afternoon. Originally, this was going to be the jumping off point on the Mighty Dash's round the world journey from Buffalo to Montreal, but got a request from a subscriber to check out Dulles International Airport down in Washington. And it occurred to me, I had the scenery. It's great scenery by Flight Beam. And it really would be wrong, if not downright irresponsible, for the Mighty Dash to depart on a journey around the world after traveling across the United States without stopping off not just in the capital of the United States, but probably one of the most iconic airports in the country, and that is Dulles. So if bear with me here, let's just take a look. There it is, and it is beautiful. And this grand sweeping terminal was designed by an architect named Eero Saarinen. If the name sounds familiar to you, that's because in addition to designing some of the most memorable mid-century modern furniture, which you still see around today at stores like Design Within Reach, those molded fiberglass sort of bendy, curvy chairs. Here, let me show you. These sorts of things right here, or actually some of these, this, and especially that. You used to see these at LaGuardia Airport here. The TWA lounge had these fiberglass molded chairs, and so in addition to doing that, of course, Saarinen also designed the unbelievable TWA terminal at Kennedy, which is of course modeled after an eagle here, but which legend has it Saarinen designed at his breakfast table while eating up some sliced grapefruit. He rearranged the wedges this way and that way until he got something that looked good. Of course, I mean, it's just unbelievably cool. And, you know, right now this is no longer a working terminal, but it's going to be converted into a hotel soon. But, I mean, dig this jet setter right here. But this still is a working terminal, and it's a rather unique terminal. And it was designed this way for a really clear reason. It was built to minimize the distance between the parking lot here and the airplane. So, let me just mute this here. So if you look at the original Dulles Airport, which was launched in 1962, you'll see there's the parking lot, there's the terminal, and you only had to walk a very, very short distance to board your plane. Except you might be asking yourself, oh, wait a minute, this is a very small terminal. This is an enormous airport. It can handle hundreds of planes, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of space for them. Well, the way Dulles got around it was it parked the planes out here, and here, and here. Only it didn't put gates there. Instead, what it used were mobile lounges. These dealies right here. So you would walk up to the ticket counter, you'd get your boarding pass, then you'd walk just about 50 yards, that's about it, to doors. and the doors would take you to one of these mobile lounges, and the mobile lounge would take you to your magnificent Pan Am Clipper or TWA Worldliner, and off you would go. These days, what Dulles has done now, sadly, I suppose, is they've replaced these mobile lounges with terminals that are stuck, you see, way out here. These are now the terminals, and that's basically where the mobile lounges used to park. So there'll be a terminal here and here and here, and there's a people mover underneath. And I suppose people prefer it that way, but there's a certain amount of elegance lost. And let me just quickly show you, better than I can explain it, how the process worked. They made a film. As a matter of fact, two other great designers, Charles and Ray Eames, who also, also helped design Polaroid cameras, and of course the Eames chair and all the rest of that, but they were also documentary filmmakers, and they made a neat little film explaining how the whole thing worked. So let me let them explain it.
As the lounge moves from terminal to aircraft, the passengers find themselves in a spacious room, isolated from fumes and noise. And those interested in operations can sit forward in the observation section. Once freed from the building, the departure lounge can move anywhere. Originating flights can even be boarded at the hangar, from which the aircraft can move directly to the takeoff runway. In the lounge, the passenger has started his trip and can be ferried to the aircraft wherever it is most convenient from an operation standpoint. Through flights will be grouped around the centralized operation units, which are easily accessible to the runways and from which the planes will receive fuel and other services. The larger planes will be fed by pairs of lounges, reducing transfer time to a minimum. The approach is made under controlled conditions. The pneumatic contact unit moves out and forms a sealed passage. Doors of lounge and plane are opened and the transfer effected. The mobile lounge will perhaps be best known for its convenience and its feeling of luxury. But a very substantial part of its value will come from the freedom and flexibility it gives to airport planning. In the evolution of these operations, there is a high probability that something like the mobile lounge will be servicing quite a few of the conveyances that are yet to come along.
And that is that. And it never really came to pass. So that's where we're flying, and that's why we're flying there, because it's just cool. And there are a few of them left, and you'll have to excuse me. I can't move my view around at all because I'm running the new version of Prepared, which just came out today, just installed it, which I believe there's a technical term for it. It's called stupid. So my EasyDock doesn't work except by jumping around like this, so forgive me as I do my quick checks here and jerk my head around here, but we'll check our overhead panel. That is cool. We're going to be cruising at 25,000 feet, flight level 250. We are going to check our weather, which didn't start up. So we just start it up here, get ourselves going. Oh, everything is broken, but it'll work well enough. Close enough for rock and roll. Let's see, we're reporting 30.04. A little bit of a wind. We'll set the altimeter thusly. Everything is broken with this new version of Prepared. So this was an egregiously dumb thing to do, but it seems to be giving me a little bit of weather of some sort. So we will take off into the very wild and semi-beta blue yonder here. Get ourselves up to cruise. I've already filmed the arrival late last night, so I'm just redoing the top of this thing because it didn't record properly the first time, and I hadn't found that great Eames documentary for Dulles. So in any case, just make sure my nose wheel steering is on, and it is, and I think we're good to go. We will fly up to cruise, and then cut the video. And there's 80 knots, and the frame rates seem good. That's good. And rotate. Matter of fact, they seem strikingly good. The new version is supposed to gear up, is supposed to cure a bunch of mild ailments like buildings sticking up out of the ground and a few other funkyisms. Bring up our flaps here, and we're 1,000 feet above field elevation, so we'll bring back the props. Bring back to 900. And we will pop ourselves into IAS mode, climb at about 175. I'm just flying this by hand here. The gauges are set up funny. And in a minute we'll go direct to our new course. The departure we flew is the Buffalo 5 departure, which is basically just a climb on runway heading and then vectors to our course. So we'll just intercept that. And I'm trying to get in as much hand flying time as possible, and I would recommend everybody do that because this plane really rewards it. Just adjust our heading bug here. I urge it on everyone because it's really the only way to get to kind of know and love the quirks of an aircraft. And I've also found that just flying ordinary procedures like this, you know, the climb, the descent from top of descent all the way down, hand flown, it also helps coordination and feel in just all phases of flight. So if you're just doing a traffic pattern, or you've got an approach with a funky turn to final, or a couple quirks in it, the more you hand fly, the more you can adapt to something like that. And the less you worry about automation going wrong, instead of, I find instead of going heads down and trying to figure out why the autopilot is doing something odd, I've got the confidence now, just from practicing and practicing and practicing, that I know that if push comes to shove, I can drop down a level of automation, as the great Warren Vandenberg would counsel, and then do what needs to be done. What I am going to do here is I can't just tilt my head down, so pop up here, hold myself steady, and turn our bleeds, tune in, and pop out our lights. And there we go. I'm also going to take us direct to our next waypoint, which is ETG, which is showing up in magenta there, but it's not displaying magenta line, and sometimes you have to sort of force this FMS to wake up and refresh itself. You see down there, there's no magenta line, even though it's highlighted as our next waypoint, so we'll just choose direct to, and whenever that happens you can do that and it'll reestablish your magenta lines, so you've got a pretty picture on the MFD. We'll let our speed decay just a little bit here in the climb. Give ourselves a faster rate. And again, I'm just walking the trim around ever so slightly and getting my hand in a comfortable, relatively neutral position. It's easier to trim in a real airplane because you can feel the thing pulling against you, and what you do is you set the speed you want, set the type of flight you want, whether you want to be climbing, descending, or flying level, and then you just crank the old trim wheel or squeeze the electric trim button, or on an airliner buttons, because they generally use two side by side, until the forces go away. It's harder to do on a fake plane because you don't have the forces, so what you sort of have to do is trim and let your control yoke or your stick relax towards the center of its travel until you feel the spring pressure go away. So it's kind of once removed from direct forces, but you can sort of fake it. So I'm flying the magenta bar there, as you can see, and that is giving us our IAS climb speed of about 175, 173 is what I've got it set at. If I were to, for instance, crank my IAS down, you'll see that I will have to pitch up to reach that target, and actually what should happen is that magenta bar should refresh itself and rise and give me a target to shoot for, but it's not. That's an interesting quirk. Might be a bug. Anyway, we'll spin our vertical speed, our IAS up again. Yeah, that bar should be coming down or up depending on what I do with the speed. Now it looks like it is. Interesting. I wonder if that's just a quirk in the software at the moment, or I can't imagine that's the way the real thing behaves, because if you need to lower the nose, you see, to speed up, to change your IAS, and we'll just switch into a standard altimeter now. You would think that the guidance right there, see, watch what happens when I set the IAS to 174 and pop in the autopilot. Watch what happens to the bar. It will follow us down until we pick up speed. Huh. I'll have to ask Alexei or Simeon about that on the Majestic forum. In the meantime, as we come up on our cruise, let's get our gauges readjusted here. Other thing is the shared cockpit panel sometimes pops up when you don't want it. Just a few little kinks that they're working out. This is still not the final version of the Pro for prepared. It's still a beta or release candidate. Let's close that. And close it again. Wish I could just slide my view forward here, but EasyDock is not going to cooperate. So I'll just look out the window there, and I don't see any enormous pieces of popping up towers and terrain and spikes coming out of it like I did with 3.0. So that's better. And the frame rate seems to be really, really good. Can't really beat that. You know what we're going to do? Let's do this. Let's switch it just for yucks. Pop our weather. Force our weather to do a little bit of cloudiness and see what it does to our frame rates. No, they're still pretty good. Just turn off active sky. You see active sky next died, so it doesn't really matter. We're manual anyway. So let's make the weather really, really rank here. Major thunderstorm. There we go. Not working. Ah, it is working. Other thing not working is our IIS mode. Well, at least it's fast. There's 1,000 to go. Bring our props back to 850. We will check our pressurization, which we would have been eyeballing all the way up, but I can't look up, so. So to answer your first question, is 3.1 an improvement over 3.0? Yep, looks like it. To answer your second question, is anything fully compatible with it? So far as I can tell right now, no. And we've just lost our #1 prop electric controller, so the way you fix that is you kill the engine and you kill the caution and you restart. Up we go. Restart engine 1. And we quickly check our flight instruments to make sure we're still flying straight and level, and we are. And that's an artifact of my controller. See how it's jumping around like that? This one jumps around too. And when you move it down to here every once in a while, it'll just give a little spike and it'll jump all the way to off. So we will bring up our engines on both sides, and they will climb up. Just make sure we're still flying straight and level. We're a little bit out of trim now with the rudder because we're asymmetrical in power in a big way. And let us set max cruise. See them jump around? Alright, we're in max cruise. We are at our rating power. Everything appears to be Jake. Cycle our bleeds. All is well. And we're in the cruise, and I'm going to go off and lick my early adopter wounds for doing something as egregiously dumb as installing a new version of anything on day one. But we'll see, as the great Flight Sim 481 says, we'll see how we get on. I'm not seeing any terrain spikes at all here, which is great, so I'm sure everything will be updated in a matter of a couple days or weeks, and in the meantime, I'm going to stop the video here and we will mix in an earlier video of the arrival from right at TOD. See you later. Okay, we're coming up on top of descent, just briefing our approach into Dulles. We're going to use runway 19 center, and we're going to get cleared almost directly to our IAF of Hoosier. We're sort of going to jump start what would have been the leg 03 arrival, but we're going to forego the leg of it that leads us way a little bit far out to the east. So we're just going to expedite things, flying south here, battling an enormous crosswind here. We're looking at cloudy on the ground in Dulles, and possibly some low overcast. So it could get interesting. We'll have the capability, as we turn on our seatbelt signs, we will have the capability to do a Cat 2 or even a Cat 3 arrival. Set up the HUD already by putting in our touchdown zone elevation and our runway length, and tuning in our ILS on both sides. And here we go. Come off the power here as we sneak up on the barber pole. And I'll just quickly retrim. Already set our V speeds. Already set our approach course on both sides. It's 191. Let me just double check to make sure we have it in right here. And it is set for 191, so we're good to go. I'll also see if we can arm the approach, although it's a little bit academic because we'll be switching over. Okay, not yet. Probably by the time we get to cover. It's a bit academic because we will be switching over when we turn inbound here, probably into heading mode and then into blue needles. So whether the approach is armed or not in the FMS is a little bit immaterial. If we wanted to fly it as a pink needle overlay, then arming it would be important. And if I'm not mistaken, I've never really attempted it, but if we don't do anything, I'm not sure whether it arms naturally by itself once we get inside the intermediate fix. I think it does not arm automatically, but if it is armed, it will activate automatically. But again, I've yet to test it. We've been told to keep our speed up a little bit by ATC, so we're gonna. And once we turn inbound, I'll probably just fly this by hand because I want to keep up my proficiency. Because it's been a long day and I've just been out at a 17th birthday party for my niece and 3 of her friends at a big, loud, crowded, noisy restaurant. I'm probably not going to fly it outright raw data. I will use the flight director, but you know, you can always turn off the flight director and really fly it raw data. So you'll fly the glide slope and the localizer down here, and that, you know, demands a little bit more in the way of skill, and it's always good practice. And if you were doing a real-life check ride or a simulator recurrent training, if you're at an airline, chances are one of your approaches would probably include an ILS approach, say, with raw data. But we're going to use, as the English say, all mod cons, which I gather means all modern conveniences. We're just going to do it ourselves and not let George do it. Looking for 18,000, at which point we'll switch to local altimeter, and actually I'll get a quick read on what that local altimeter is. Using Active Sky Next, and at the moment it's 3032 here, and I think it's 3039 at Dulles, and it is. Okay. So we'll plop in 3032 at the moment. Pretend ATC is giving us that. And of course that will put us above our VNAV path, and we'll just hope that it doesn't disconnect and put us in pitch hold mode, which it sometimes will. And it's the easiest way to get yourself in trouble. It will pop out of this into pitch mode. It will enunciate up here, but it will not flash a caution or a warning or anything. You'll just 1 minute be in VNAV path, and the next moment you'll be going down at the same rate, but without any VNAV guidance to adjust you. So we're just crowding the barber pole here because we want to expedite things. Again, we're going into Dulles, which opened up in 1962, and finally, after many, many, many long years, became a busy airport. It used to be almost a ghost town. It's where all the international and long-distance flights come into Washington, but the reality is that for all of Washington's importance, and I went to school there, and I lived there, worked there, you know, it's not as heavily served by multiple international flights as, say, New York or even Philadelphia, for that matter. But finally, in the late 80s, early 90s, it became a United Airlines hub, and I think it's remained that to this day. And it is, I think as you saw in the pictures earlier, it is a strikingly beautiful place. And from a purely aviation standpoint, it is quite a congenial place. There are 3 widely spaced parallel runways. They are wide and they are long, and ATC there has always been very, very good. And even though there's more traffic than there was years ago, it's not jam-packed to the point where it gets kind of insane to fly in there. My uncle, who once upon a time was a private pilot in the 70s and 80s, would every now and again fly into Dulles when he'd fly into Washington, just because it was so quiet there. Flying in a Mooney Super 21, and frequently would get clearance to land on a taxiway. He said the air traffic controllers were always terribly glad to talk, because at the time at least they seemed glad to talk to anybody. But that's changed. It still is not a lunatic place. There's of course the Washington D.C. area airspace, which you need special training and certification to go in and out of because of the VIPs who happen to be there, and obviously because the events in 9/11. I'm just going to turn on our pumps and auxes and just get stuff squared away. I was spoiled a couple days ago by flying with the great heli pilot, and of course my Easy Dock has failed, so we're just going to tilt up this way and check everything else. We need no ice protection, we're good. Come on down here, zoom in a little bit. Well, at least I can still tilt up and center my view, but it's very annoying. The sharp-eyed among you will notice that I turned on our lights at about 11:08 instead of 10. Basically, again, because it's just me. And I suppose I should declare an emergency now that Easy Dock has failed, but At any rate, spin our altimeter up to 3039. We'll actually double check our Washington weather right here, and as we come below 10, we'll bring out the power and slow us down below 250. Alright, cloudy, 3039. Alright, well, it's cleared up a bit, so clouds are clear below 20. Bummer. I was kind of hoping for something a little bit spicier, but we won't get it. So, cover, and we're looking for Hoosier, and Hoosier is going to be at 5,000. Okay, so we're below 250. Let's just maintain 250. We're close to it. As we come over the Frederick, Maryland area, I think. Not far from Camp David, actually, which is another, it's actually a sort of permanently restricted, permanent temporary flight restriction airspace. Just hovering right around 250. We will land flaps 15, reduce noise profile on Blue Needles. Just slow ourselves down a little bit more because our Barber Pole speed is creeping up, you see. As the air gets denser, it does that. Get a downward trend going on our speed. Alright, 1,000 away from that restriction, and let's see where we are. So Hoover's next at 5,000. So we'll spin ourselves down to 5. As our scenery loads, we'll hit Altcel, and then we'll arm our approach. And let's, nope, Easy Dock does not work. And we're turning on to our final approach course. That is the Potomac River. And I would move the view over a little bit so we can see the field coming into sight, but sadly we can't do that. So what I'm going to do right now is pop us into heading select, and that'll pop us into pitch hold, and we will flip our nav source over, and we'll see that, my goodness, we are almost dead bang on it. So we'll first acquire the localizer as we duck in below the glide slope, bring us down below 200, put out our first notch of flaps in a second. There we go. Localizer's starting to come in. Pop us into approach mode. And I think what we're going to do is put in our first notch of flaps. Get our props set up here. Everything else should be good to go. Oh, I'm not going to be able to use our HUD because I can't zoom in. Damn it. Oh well. Alright, so we'll fly the pink needles. Do it the old-fashioned way. I also have to come up and turn my bleeds to min, and that should complete our checks. Lights are good. Everything else is kosher. We are going to just capture everything just beautifully here. Alright, let's just chug on in here. Pretend we know what we're doing. Mix some small corrections here. We're going to ease ourselves into a standard 3-degree down, standard rate of descent. Wait for a minute for the scenery to load. And we'll just keep those needles lined up. I'm rolling off the power a bit. And down we go. Nice comfy speed here. Our missed approach altitude is actually 3,000, but I've got my hands on the controls here, so I can't spin that up, so I'm going to make a mental note of that. We're just flying the pink needles, and you notice that our localizer and glide slope are staying more or less where they should be. I've just noticed that I'm not getting DME information because 19 centered does not have its own DME. So you have to tune in the Dulles VOR. So I'm just going to bring down the gear. I could cheat and check on the FMS, but just leave that alone for a minute. Nose us down ever so slightly because the flaps are going to balloon us up. I don't want to do anything to really destabilize this approach. And again, I'm just making teeny tiny corrections here. Bring the nose up a little bit now, trim up a little and come off the power a bit, and put in our last notch of flaps. And if you're flying an ILS approach right, ideally you shouldn't be doing a lot. Trim up slightly. You can see the visibility is pretty rotten actually. Getting a little bit low, so I'm going to bring up the nose. Try not to balloon or buffoon. See that needle creeping up, the little diamond there, the glide slope diamond, so I'm going to bring up the nose and feed in a little more power.
2,500.
And slowly creep that glide slope diamond back down where it belongs. Still about 1/4 of a dot low, so I'm just going to fix that right now. A little more power. Fly slightly above the glide path for a little bit. And let that needle come back to us. I'm not looking out the window at all at this point. Just trying to fly steadily and smoothly with small corrections with power. And now we can ease ourselves in 1 second into a bit more of a descent. Not too much more. Matter of fact, because we're coming right around our V-app here, I'm just going to feed in just a little bit more juice. Better to be a 1/2 dot high if need be, and very slightly excess energy than a 1/2 dot low and slightly low on energy, because we've got 11,500 feet of runway to work with. So just going to come back off the power slightly. Let that needle come back up to us. Not even looking outside yet. Wouldn't be prudent. A little bit of a crosswind now. And our speed is creeping up. We got ourselves configured very, very early here. Ordinarily, you'd get turned and really wouldn't be fully established until right about here. Come up a little bit, bleed off some speed. And I'm going to look out the window now. Put ourselves in standby, and I'm going to see that we are lined up and we are two whites and two reds. At least we were until we ducked down there for a second. So just flatten out our approach and slow down a little bit. Take note of the crosswind here. Give us a little more power. And trim up.
500.
So we flattened out our approach just a little bit here. We're exactly at our V-app. Throw in a little more crab.
Plus 100.
And in a second I'll remove the crab by pushing on the left rudder and then sliding my hand just a little bit
50.
in the opposite direction.
40. 30.
Like so.
20. 10.
And welcome to Dulles. Are we going to make this turn off? Yes. So that's sort of the basics of a hand-flown ILS approach. Got a little bit out of shape at the end. Ideally, you should be able to do that and do it right down to minimums, which in our case would have been, for a Cat 2 approach, 100 feet. So we'll hold short here of 19 left, and I would show you more of Dulles right here, but again, thanks to the evil geniuses at Easy Dock, we're gonna have to leave it right there. And I think our next trip is going to be from here up to... We'll do two legs. We'll do a short hop to Philly and then a quick turnaround and immediately up to JFK. So we'll plan both of them and we'll call up the routes and get the passengers in and out, get fueled quickly, and go to it. In the meantime, as always, thanks for watching, and thanks for subscribing, and also thanks for your tips and comments and suggestions. They have made everything I do a lot more interesting and a lot more educational, and see you next time. As always, thanks for watching.